commence our public session for general business, and we have the next half hour for that. I don't know whether we're going to need it, but let's get started. So the first item is the approval of the minutes that have been circulated. Are there any comments or changes to the minutes? I actually had one question, just for curiosity, Chris. On page 6, with reference to the project, they were going to submit a sample of the brick wall detail, and I just wondered if that has happened yet, or if that's in the works, or what.
Oh, well, I'll be reporting on that. It is in the works. It hasn't happened yet. Yep.
Okay, great. All right, no comments, no changes. So can I have a motion from someone to approve, please, and a seconder?
Eric for moving.
Eric to move.
I'll second it.
Okay, Janet to second. Thank you. Okay, I guess, Chris, over to you. Review of the day's agenda. You'll cover off in the items. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest from anyone on this matter? Hearing none. Okay, as Chris has said, we only have the one item today, so it's here for schematic design, so it obviously will be coming back in the future. So lots of opportunity for us to provide input. So Chris, you want to report back on last month's projects?
Sure. Do we have that's up, Leon? So yeah. You asked about 60 Trinity Street. So we did give the project full support last time, provided that they submit some samples of the brick with the specifications. So they have, I think, committed to getting that to us by Q1. Is that right, Leon? We get first quarter of 2021, so sometime after January. Mm-hmm. So they are aware that they've made that commitment and planning to follow through on it. So we will get that and somehow put it on the screen or send photos or something around to you guys, or maybe we'll even all be back together by then, who knows? Or I could break it into several little pieces and we could mail each of them to you. To do that.
Could we see the mortar selection as well as the brick, because the two go together?
That's a good question. I'm sure we could put that request in.
I think that was part of the minutes, actually.
Was it?
Yeah, I think so.
But if they only show us a brick, it's not that helpful.
Right.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it on that one. Next slide, please. So the Lower Yonge Public Realm, we are going to be meeting with the proponent team, I think with the city, to debrief them on the meeting and try and get them to better address all the concerns that were raised at the last panel meeting. They are expecting to come back for schematic design next year, and we'll try to make sure that the context images and the other things that weren't provided are part of that presentation as you guys had asked for. Is there anything else on that one, Lorna, that you know of, or Leon?
No, I don't have any other updates, thanks.
Okay.
No, yeah.
Okay.
So I think maybe I could make a quick comment on this, that given that the team is very much a technical team and not so much like a high design team, like really seeing the pieces of all the design pieces together and having them address it kind of broadly is, I think, something that the panel asked for a lot when the team was here presenting. I don't know if the onus is so much on the team that they should be putting that together, but maybe Waterfront Toronto could compile a package that allows them to kind of present all the design concepts while they're actually presenting their own work at the same time.
Maybe this is Bridget. I guess I wanted to know whether there was going to be any dialogue between the West 8 team, who is doing the Gardner east of this site, because the issue of what is continuous and what is different is kind of the thing that we really need to understand, and that we don't want everything to be totally different in this precinct. Some elements should remain continuous, and then there are other elements where it's appropriate for it to be unique. And I think that that's to understand that in the bigger context, and also even what is proposed to the west of this site. And certain things are already underway. The ship has sailed. So we need to kind of fully understand those items and then how this fits into that, which I think was really, I would just echo what Betsy was saying. It was kind of the missing piece of the presentation, even though it was early on, and it was hard to contextualize what they were proposing, given all these other things are already underway.
Yeah, well, so we can do a better job on that. I mean, we have presented the public realm strategy, and the design palettes for these streets are all based on the ones that we've established in East Bayfront. So the continuity is there in that regard. Obviously, there's a long way to go from translating those into actual streetscape details. So it's still a valid point. But the public realm plan is based on all the same materials and basically cross-section ideas that we've implemented elsewhere. But we can make that more clear in the next presentation.
Thank you.
Chris, it's Paul. I just had a question. I remember in the discussion on that, in our wrap-up comments, we really talked about how enormous the scale of what's going to be happening in this lower Yonge area is, and how not only how all the pieces fit together, but some really creative thinking I think was welcome for some bold ideas to, especially regarding the public realm, to deal with the massive number of people that are going to be living and working and visiting that area. So I hope all that is going to be part and parcel of their future work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I think, again, the public realm plan did try to account for that, so we probably needed just a better recap of all of those elements. Because I think there's been a fair amount of consideration for that, at least at the planning scale. And maybe there's more to be pushed for now that we're getting into the design too. So I think that's a good conversation to have.
Just one additional point is that the public park has a lot of pressure on it, and I understand that it's being done through the city. It has its own issues around its timing, but even to be aware of what its timeline and what its process is, even if it's not fully figured out, would just be a really helpful context to have when discussing the specific area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. We'll find out what the city's timeline is. Unfortunately, I don't think they have an implementation time frame at the moment, but we'll have a conversation with them and get as much information as we can. Okay. Should we go to the next slide, please?
Yep.
So this is a construction photo of Portland's flood protection. We're doing the main channel. We've finished digging it, and we're now starting to build it back up. So that's the multiple layers of fabric that have to be put down the new riverbed. So there's a geosynthetic clay liner, which is the white, a geomembrane, which is black, and then the protective sand. And it actually gets welded together, so it becomes a continuous barrier, largely, keeping hazardous materials from flowing into the river. But this is all underway, and we have now also started excavating for the Don Greenway, which you see in the key map is the dark blue. But the main sort of piece of the river is coming along, and I guess we're basically at a point where we're near one of the plugs. So this has all been built in the dry. The stuff in Pulse and Slip to the west will be built in the wet, obviously, and then the connector up to the existing Keating will also be built in the dry. And then there'll be plugs at either end that will get pulled out, and that will be an exciting point in the history of this project. But yes, go ahead, Paul.
I'm just curious, any idea when they're going to pull the plugs, roughly speaking?
It's supposed to be in 2003 sometime.
2000 when?
3.
No, not 3.
2023?
Sorry, 23. Sorry.
Yes, that's right.
2023, yes.
So we're in suspense for a while yet. So.
Yeah, we got a few years. Yep.
Okay, all right, okay. Oh, it's going to be fabulous.
Leon, you want to speak to this one?
Yeah, these are some recent construction photos of the soil treatment plants at PLFP. So this is what is known as the Star X system, and it will approximately treat 1,000 cubic meters of soil every week. So there are 4 of these so-called hot pads. Each one, so you're looking at one on the left there under construction, and then the photo on the right there is an empty hotbed. And what happens is basically they would fill the entire volume up with the contaminated soil. They would put a clean layer on the very top and close the entire thing, and then start the combustion process. And then it would, through the process of 1 week, all of the contaminated soil will be cleaned. And then they will kind of replace with new soil, and in total, hopefully 75 cubic kilometers of soil using this technology.
Do they then truck it back to the site? Is it now considered clean fill, or do they then move it somewhere else?
Most of it's getting reused. I don't know what the percentage is. Some of it comes out and it's still not good enough, but most of it is getting reused. We could find out what the percentage is and get you that. But the goal is to clean as much of it and reuse it on site as we can. It's only the really bad stuff that doesn't end up clean enough from this process.
So it's mostly
Is there a way that they test it once it's finished with the combustion process to know if it's good to go?
Oh yeah, they test the soil so many times. Every time they move it, they test it. So I think it's got tested.
That's amazing.
So the
It is. I
contaminants
just
in
wonder, Chris,
hydrocarbons.
whether or not you sort of, when this happens, it was a great story for the newspaper. Most people don't know this even is possible, probably.
Yes, I know.
Very interesting.
Is it mostly hydrocarbons?
Whoever's talking is breaking up too
there's
much to hear.
Yeah.
Sorry, Chris, I think you're breaking up a little bit,
Yeah.
and your video feed is frozen.
You still look pretty good, though, Chris.
Hey, thank you. Can you hear? Hello?
Yeah,
Am I still breaking up?
it's better.
Leon, why don't you finish up?
Okay.
Can
Sure,
I ask a quick question? Sorry to interrupt. Leon, is this something Waterfront Toronto purchased and owns, or is this something you loan? Just very curious. Like, is that, do you know?
I don't know.
Our contractor built this.
Oh, they built it.
Yeah.
So this is like waterfront innovation related technology.
Well, I think this is not unique technology. I think they just they set these up on these sites. Some of it's probably reusable, but they pour a concrete pad and do a few other things. So I think it's semi-mobile. So when this is done, this will go somewhere else. I'm sure some of it'll just be thrown away, and then some of it'll be reused at the next site.
This is so great.
Yeah, this is very
does it get vented while it's cooking? Is there venting?
Now you're beyond my knowledge. I don't know.
And is the roof retractable? Like that roof comes off and they dump the soil in from the roof? Don't know that either.
Don't know that either.
Yeah.
Sorry,
So
Pat. Maybe
There is a YouTube video. I
all
can
this too.
share that with you. In the YouTube video, it seems like the roof is retractable, so they would.
Yeah, I think it lifts up or retracts or something.
Yeah.
we clearly need way more information on this.
Could we? Something maybe fun is when we're able to all come back together. I think it would be great to get the group and have a tour of the waterfront and all the new stuff that's happening, including these kind of these kind of areas.
We should do our group shot inside that soil.
Yeah.
But not while
The
it's
pressure cooker.
With the burners on?
Where's this technology come from? Where does it originate?
You guys are asking me so many questions that I do not know the answer to. I think what I should do is maybe get David Kay to kind of give you a
Yeah.
short presentation in January on every.
Yeah. There's too much curiosity. We have
Yeah.
to have the details.
Yeah, we would love that. Please do that.
This is just one thing that's been built for this. We've built an entire cement factory
Yeah. Wow.
I think we're
for
all
this
admiring.
project, too, created just for this project.
I think we're all admiring the elegant design simplicity of the industrial shed. You know,
Yeah.
when engineers boil it down to nothing else is needed, it's always looking good.
Yeah, this did not come before the panel. I don't think it's necessary.
No, temporary building.
By the
Maybe
way,
our
where is
photos-
this located, Chris?
Our group photo should be where there will be water. Like if we're standing where there's land and then in 2023, it's actually all water. It's actually a
that's
pretty cool
powerful.
shot.
That's a nice
powerful.
idea, Bridget.
Love it.
Yep. Then we'll get back in Paul's boat and go to the same spot.
Same
Oh,
spot.
even better, Peter.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Good one.
Maybe next summer we can do it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, once COVID's done, we can definitely do a site tour of the whole construction project.
Yeah.
That's you just
No,
all
that's
have to wear a
great
hard hat. But yeah,
Yeah.
I haven't been out since they started the excavation. I haven't gone out in about a year. So
Yeah.
a lot of this is stuff I haven't seen in person either.
But this is probably one of the biggest infrastructure projects in Canada going on right now, Chris.
Oh, for sure.
Like-
Probably the biggest civil works project in Canada right now. Yep.
Like it's so impressive and really amazing. Like I would love it if you guys got really good press on this.
Absolutely.
We keep
I
trying.
agree.
Alex
Agreed.
Bezikovic has written a couple stories, but even that hasn't really seemed to have sparked everybody's interest. So it's a bit of a mystification to us as to why this isn't more exciting to people. But
Yeah.
somehow we haven't hit the right notes, I guess, to get
Maybe
everybody.
Alex is the wrong guy. You might want to try some of the other reporters, say at the Star, like Tess Kalawinski, I think her name is, covers real estate. This is a really interesting story.
Yeah. Well, it's been covered by a few other writers, but Alex did do a big piece on it. I think it was a double-page spread. But
Okay.
yeah, I think part of it is there wasn't that much to see, and come the spring, it's going to be very evident that this landscape looks totally different. So hopefully we can get more people out there when the weather's nice.
Great. Well,
Okay.
great way to start spring.
We'll give you guys a better full briefing on this next time.
Okay. Anything else, Chris?
No, I think just our agenda for next month, the draft agenda. So we believe 11 Bay is going to be coming next month for a sort of second round of issues identification. 200 Queens Quay, and hopefully Queens Quay East schematic design for this street. We'll be back, and nothing's on the waiting list yet. So as of now, it looks like it's just 3 items, but
Well, they're pretty
we'll see.
fulsome, so
Yeah.
that'll give us almost a full day, I think. So the only other thing I forgot to do was just inform any participants that are on the public session that this is being recorded and will be posted on the Waterfront Toronto website, just for information. So if nothing else, Chris, do you want to, we're ahead of schedule, do you want to adjourn and reconvene at 1:30?
Well, why don't you just give me 1 minute? I'll do
Oh,
that
yeah,
brief
Betsy needs
acknowledgement.
I'm sorry, Betsy. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge the life and work of Barry Sampson, who passed away about a week and a half ago. He, not only because our panel has really deep connections with George being his longtime business partner, Bridget, among others, having decades of teaching experience with him at University of Toronto, but just also to say that between his built work, which was both in and outside of the city with Baird Sampson Newart, and especially his teaching career at U of T, where he probably has kind of taught so many people coming through that have previously had and will have a future influence on the city of Toronto. Teaching with him for 7 years in the Comprehensive Building Studio was a privilege. It wasn't just that I was teaching the students, but whenever I would hear him give a lecture, I always learned something new. And his ability to connect practice with teaching and theory and life was really unparalleled. So just wanted to say thank you for his contribution, and we will definitely miss him.
Thanks very much, Betsy. I think everyone would obviously concur with those remarks. He's an amazing person. Anyone else like to make any
Yes,
remarks?
Paul, this is just George. I just wanted to thank Betsy for her kind words. I never taught, I always thought it would be a bit odd to teach with Barry when he was already my professional partner. So I'm the one person that never did teach together with him. And so I've been very struck by the intensity of the statements which people like Betsy have made about co-teaching with Barry. And so it's been a real revelation for me. So thank you, Betsy, for that. And thank you too to Bridget, who worked so hard in Barry's last days to keep things going and to alert people to his passing. So I'm very grateful for all your support. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Chris, is there anything else we need to cover in the remaining 10 minutes? Otherwise, perhaps we should adjourn to 1:30.
Okay, no, I don't have anything else. If everybody, and if no one else has anything they want to chat, then yeah, why don't we just take a 10-minute break?
Okay, so we'll reconvene at 1:30 for the public session. Thank you.
Yes, George? Yeah.
Would you mind giving me a phone call since we're going to have a break? I have a follow-up question from our conversation yesterday.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye.
Okay, see you in 10 minutes. Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. We have 1 to 7 Yonge Street, phases 4 and 5 here for schematic design. So we will be taking a vote at the end of the discussion. And I'd like to introduce it. Looks like Carolyn Kim, Urban Design, Waterfront Toronto, and Nadar Kadri from the City of Toronto. So Carolyn, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, you want to kick it off?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. As Paul just mentioned, it's 1 to 7 Yonge, phases 4 and 5. The proponent is Pinnacle Development, and with the design team is David Pontarini from Herrera Pontarini Architects, and the review stage is for schematic design. We're going to be talking about Parcel B, which is phase 4 and 5, located at the east corner, of Yonge Street and Queens Quay East. I'm getting a lot of feedback. Can everyone mute, please? Thank you. Next slide, Leon. And to speak about the project backgrounds, we have Nader Kadri from Community Planning, City of Toronto. Nader?
Hi, everyone. I'm Nader Kadri, the community planner currently on this file. So as you all may know, the 1 to 7 Yonge Street development has a pretty complex history, achieving final official plan and zoning bylaw approval by way of LPAT settlement. The project is intended to be developed in phases, and the zoning bylaw has been structured accordingly. With respect to Parcel A, which is the block noted in blue on this map, Phase 1 has been site plan approved and is well under construction. With respect to Phase 2, the holding provisions were recently lifted by council and the site plan process is well underway, with approval likely commencing within 2021. With respect to Phase 3, the project is presently still held by the zoning bylaw. Particularly, Phase 3 requires the conveyance of the future Harbour Street extension, which is still slightly tied up. But the site plan process is still under review at this time. The application before the panel today relates to phases 4 and 5, which are located on Parcel B, marked in pink on the map. The recently submitted official plan and zoning bylaw amendment proposes a series of built form and land use changes to the LPAT settlement, including the addition of a hotel use. The applicant will be taking you through details of these changes shortly, and I encourage the panel to focus comments in on some of these changes that will be presented. Overall, the development of the 1 to 7 Yonge Street block brings forward key city building uses, including affordable housing within phases 1 to 3, a community center within phase 1, and various financial contributions, including funds towards the Jack Layton Ferry Terminal and the planned Lower Yonge Park on the Menke site. As you can see below, with respect to design review panel history, the project has been to panel a number of times, but I think Caroline's going to take you through the various consensus comments a little later on in this presentation. Leon, can we? Perfect. So the LPAT order, which was issued in April 2019, resulted in site-specific provisions to facilitate the overall development. With respect to the South Block or Parcel B, heights of 22 stories and 35 stories were approved for the 2 towers, which consists of a total of 147,600 square meters of GFA, a privately owned, publicly accessible mid-block connection, and below-grade path connection beneath Harbor Street. Next slide.
And I'm just going to quickly run through the site context with the existing conditions. As you can see, as Nader pointed out in the pink patch is the phase B or parcel B, which is phase 4 and 5, which we'll be discussing today. Next slide, please. And this is a view looking at Queens Quay and Yonge Street looking northeast, and you can see the Toronto Star building right there. Next slide. And this is at Queens Quay and Freeland Street looking northwest. Next slide. And this is on Freeland Street looking southwest. Next slide. And this is Yonge Street looking southeast. Next slide. And to the east of 1 to 7 Yonge Street is the development of 55 Lakeshore Boulevard East, being developed by Menkes and Architects Alliance. And as you can see, in the plan is the precinct ground floor plan of what they are proposing. They have 3 blocks, which is block 4 and 2 to the north, and block 1, which is the office or commercial use building to the south. And then you have the Lower Yonge Park, which is being contributed by all 3 developments of Menkes, Pinnacle, and future, hopefully, Choice REIT, Loblaws. Next slide, please. And on 55 Lakeshore Boulevard East, there is the existing heritage listed building of the LCBO office and warehouse. And this is the proposed plan for that block where the LCBO building sits on. Next slide. And to speak of the public realm and precinct plan in the Lower Yonge, my colleague Adam Novak will be discussing this. Adam?
Thanks, Caroline. I'm Adam Novak with Waterfront Toronto. And given that this is quite a prominent site within the Lower Yonge precinct, I want to give a little bit of overview. This material may look quite familiar. The intro is quite similar to what we gave several months ago when Lower Yonge came to the DRP for issues ID. This slide is good. So the Lower Yonge precinct is 9 hectares of commercial industrial land in the heart of the central waterfront. Consists of land from the east, on the east side, bordered by Lower Jarvis, on the west side by Yonge, on the south by Queens Quay East, and in the north by Lakeshore. And this plan illustrates a fine-grained network of mid-block connections to connect people through building sites and enhance pedestrian permeability. Other key thing is we're trying to encourage and striving to encourage walking. So we're trying to make the neighborhood very walkable and discourage the use of automobiles for short trips. I also want to note too, the precinct plan calls for the public realm to be generous and well designed, and also appropriate mix of uses, services, and amenities for future residents and workers, given how much density is expected here and height as well. It's imperative and important for the framework to ensure the new development is appropriately planned and sensitive to the location on the waterfront. within this area, we're basically proposing 4 types of streets. First type is Main Street. So Queens Quay East will be a Main Street primary street. And then to the north, Harbor Street, which also runs east-west, will be a Main Street local once Harbor Street is normalized and extended. Running north-south, can we go back? Running north-south, we have promenade streets, which include Yonge, Cooper, and Lower Jarvis. And then Freeland is a neighborhood street. Next slide, please. Within the street sections, first we have Harbor Street. So Harbor Street, east of Yonge, we're proposing 4 lanes of traffic with bidirectional cycle track, and then a single row of street trees on either side of the street. And then once we get to east of Yonge on Harbor Street, this will be the condition adjacent to this development site. We'll have 3 lanes of traffic and then a double alley of trees on the south side. Looking at Yonge Street, so similarly south to Harbor, we'll have 3 lanes of traffic with a unidirectional cycle track. And then on Yonge, north of Harbor, we'll have 4 lanes of traffic with the unidirectional cycle track. And then similar street tree conditions, both north and south of Harbor. Looking kind of more detailed. So for Lower Yonge, Harbor Street, which is kind of the primary local street, we'll have a single alley of trees, and then we're proposing the waterfront standard unit paver. And then quite similarly for the promenade streets, basically just a little bit more generous public realm in between the curb and the development, where we have a double row of trees, and then also a more generous furnishings zone. Next slide, please. Just looking at the sections. So on Freeland, which is on the east side, basically Freeland between Queens Quay and Harbor, we will have 2 lanes of traffic plus a TTC resting area with this single row of street trees on the east side. And then on Freeland Street between Harbor and Lakeshore, we will have 2 lanes of traffic plus parking and street trees on both sides of the street. We also want to point out this project is adjacent to the Queens Quay East project, which WT has retained Westate and DTH for the design of this project. Next slide, please. Similarly to Queens Quay West, we're supporting the idea of granite pavers being extended up to the building face. Next slide. Streetscaping. So within Lower Yonge, the proposed streetscaping plan provides a palette of paving designs for the street types proposed in the precinct plan. Kind of want to emphasize the common paving details and dimensions create a coherent identity and provide consistency throughout the waterfront. So although we do have many types of streets, they're all quite similar and consistent in terms of materiality and layout. So looking at the first type, this is Harbor Street on the north side. We're proposing a unit paver, kind of a paleotech unit paver, quite similar to the rest of the waterfront. Next slide, please. Looking at Yonge Street on the east side, Cooper Street on the east side, and Jarvis Street on the west side. Quite similar in terms of materiality. Also unit paving, with the main difference being the amount of trees and the spacing, which we touched on earlier. Next slide, please. Looking at Harbor Street, materials would be a little bit different. Looking at using the combination of concrete and unit pavers, also with a double row of trees. Looking at the west side of Yonge, concrete paving. Next slide. And then lastly, looking at the Queens Quay interim condition, So this condition would be built to city standard by the developer. And then the future condition would be designed and built by Waterfront Toronto. Next slide. Public art plan. So the public art plan outlines a series of art opportunities which set out how art program will function within the public realm. Trying to use linear sites, both interior and exterior, where the artwork will promote flow and invite movement from one site to another, playing an important role in pedestrian animation and significantly reducing perceived boundaries between public and private space. So that'd be incorporating a variety of uses and connecting a variety of uses, such as atriums, winter gardens, and other pop spaces. And lastly, this site is also adjacent to the Lakeshore Public Realm Improvement Plan. So within the frontage of the site, it's identified as a development frontage. Next slide. And then lastly, also adjacent to the Gardner Public Realm Streetscape Plan, which provides a coherent design vision and identity to improve pedestrian and cycling connection, as well as a coherent identity for the public realm frontages of the new developments along the south.
And I'm going to quickly again go through project approval stage. As you all know, this is a private land site plan application. In December 2015, the concept plan was presented to the DRP. In December of 2017, the phase 1 to 3 was presented as a joint review with the City of Toronto and the Waterfront Toronto DRP. We are now in stage 2 review, which is schematic design for phase 4 and 5. Next slide, please. And a recap from the December 2015 master plan review. These were the consensus comments. The north-south connection is good. However, considering the number of people who would live in the area, the public realm and connections must be reviewed to reintroduce the east-west connection in the south block. The loading and servicing has improved. However, there is concern regarding the clarity of publicness and natural light into the drop-off areas. There should be no above-grade path bridges within the precinct area. The transit strategy should be further pushed to promote walkability and access from Union Station and areas within the waterfront. Next slide. And Leon, am I speaking to this, or should I introduce Ren to speak to this? You're muted.
You can speak to these, Caroline.
Okay, sure.
And then the very last slide.
Oh, sure.
End it up.
Okay.
Yeah.
For the City of Toronto joint DRP consensus comments, which happened in October 2017 for phase 1 to 3 schematic design, avoid the plus 15 bridge connections in favor of increasing pedestrian activity and animation at street level. Provide a comprehensive green space and amenity strategy that supports the proposed development's population and contributes to the broader community. Further develop visual variations between towers, including reconsidering degree of curving and swooping, sculpting of built form, adjusting tapering sculpting of tower forms, and proposed built form envelopes evokes too much of a corporate character. It is at odds with the largely residential use of this development. Develop design to portray residential program inside. Options for providing usable balconies at upper floors. Also, increase access to natural light and sun for amenities at lower levels, and provide holistic sustainability strategies that include, but is not limited to, solar panel, envelope performance, on-site renewables. Next slide. And areas for panel consideration from Waterfront Toronto for buildings. Do the buildings meet Waterfront Toronto's objectives of design excellence for this prominent site? Please focus on the massing strategy and the facade designs. Does the ground floor have strong animated conditions on all frontages, for example, along Queens Quay and Harbour? Is there design and clarity of access, loading, and parking? Please have a look at the retail and public programs and look at the design and experience of the mid-block connections. the public realm and landscape, look at the elevated bridge connections, and comment on the ground floor interface with all major streetscapes, and look at the landscape strategy at the mid-block connections and the public art opportunities. For sustainability, do the sustainability targets meet Waterfront Toronto's objectives? Has the design team adequately considered all key strategies? Next slide, please. And to speak of areas for panel consideration from the City of Toronto, Ran Chen from City will speak. Ran? Is she here, Leon?
Yeah, Ran is here.
Are you, sorry, do you hear me?
Okay, there she is. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so sorry about that. My name is Ran, and I'm the city urban designer on this file. The city had the benefit of various meetings with the applicant in which we have discussed aspects of the proposal that can be improved. Therefore, our areas of for panel considerations are somewhat specific. We would like to hear your comments on the design quality and experience of the north-south pedestrian connection in terms of how open it feels, both vertically and horizontally, the materiality, the lighting features, and how it coordinates with the architecture language in the block and with the north block connection, which is just across the street. There's some concerns of how the location of the columns and the massing above the walkway may create dark and closed conditions that are not friendly for the pedestrians. We're also interested in how the design treatment of the towers can create architectural legibility and variation between the different buildings within the precinct, and how the existing Toronto Star building, which was a local landmark, can be integrated into the design strategy and shape the architectural identity of the block and the precinct. Similarly, how the architectural expressions of the different towers can benefit from a sustainability lens with regards to cladding and building adaptation, especially of existing buildings such as the Toronto Star. And finally, we'd like you to look at the impacts of on the public realm of the proposed above-grade path connection. And this concludes the presentation on the context of the proposal. And now I will turn it to David from HPA, who will go through the design proposal for this site.
Okay, thank you. David, are you ready to go?
I am. I've just got to share my screen.
All right.
You can see that?
Yep.
So it's good to be back in front of the panel. You've seen the kind of long history of this project and it is advancing. The site, I think, has been more than adequately described, but this is just to put it within the broader context as an aerial view from the south into the waterfront block. The parcels have also been described, I think, quite adequately. Our focus is on phase 4 and 5 in the south part of the block, as indicated here. Phase 1 is under construction, the building on the left. It's still early days for that building, but it is starting to rise up and to have the cladding added to it. The middle rendering is the overall view. The view on the right is a recent construction shot showing the cladding that is going up on the phase 1 tower, and just some of the detailed shots of how that is evolving and developing in terms of the percentage of glazing and the kind of quality that we are proceeding with on that phase 1 tower. And just a quick shot of the project under construction versus the rendering on the left. The site has certainly been analyzed in a great deal of detail. We've looked at removing the existing buildings, and the printing press building, which is the low building, is the building that will be removed. The tower itself, we're going to keep the structure, but remove the cladding and reclad it as part of the development proposal. At the base of that tower, we're also cutting away the stairs and opening up the ground floor so that you can actually circulate behind the columns, and you'll see that in plan relative to a new lobby that will exist at the base of the building. So we're trying to remove the wall that exists along the edge of the base of the tower, both along Queens Quay and also along Yonge Street. This is a detail of what's existing, showing that kind of battered wall with the access stairs up. So all that will be removed, and that lobby will be enclosed and renovated as part of the overall development, and completely, I think, redefining the corner. This building, of course, is being removed, as is the piece at the back. And as a kind of starting point, we just wanted to put it into the overall context of the development that is happening in the area that you're all very familiar with. So it really is about the development of the office component of a very large mixed-use project, which continues to have a great deal of retail at the base on the north parcel and is primarily residential to the north of us in the first 3 phases. This project on the south side of Harbour was originally approved as all office, but we have added a hotel component to it, which is the taller component of the 2 building blocks that you see in the yellow tone, with the form of the existing Toronto Star building in the light gray. A rendering that puts it within the overall context relative to the Menkes project as well, just kind of situate it within the skyline of the city. And a view of from lower down, just showing again that transition from the Yonge Street corridor down in scale as we move to the east, and our building in the foreground, which is phases 4 and 5. The office building is the light blue building on the corner. The hotel is the building element that's been articulated on top of that. And then the phase 4 building is the terraced office building, which is on the east side facing the park. So this was the as of right proposal, which was slightly lower than what we're proposing. We're not adding any GFA. We're just really reconfiguring the massing to allow for the introduction of a larger hotel than the one that is being proposed in the base of the phase 2 tower. So you can see here that the height of the phase 4 building has increased slightly by 14.25 meters. And the lower building, the phase 4 building, has also been slightly adjusted in height to pick up some of the hotel program that is sitting on top of that building. But the massing is essentially consistent on the east side with what was originally approved in terms of that terraced office building, which was partly determined through the shadow studies and ensuring that we're minimizing any impact on the proposed park. In terms of the expression and the form of the architecture, I mean, given that it is an office program, it has a completely different expression relative to the 3 residential towers to the north of us. And this building is in keeping with the idea of stepping down as we head south towards Queens Quay and the waterfront. So the building massing ends up on phase 4 being a kind of a smaller, lower terraced office building with larger floor plates. So it's quite different from a lot of the floor plate offerings in the area. It's got larger floor plates and has broader terraces that are part of that massing as well. There's a clear gap between 4 and 5, which also allows us to kind of maintain the visual gap and the visual continuity between the phase 1 residential towers as well. So all the buildings are very well spaced and pulled apart from each other and clearly delineated as 5 separate buildings, each one with its own distinct character, but with some continuity in the base of the building as well. This just outlines the phases of construction and the overall roof plan to show the idea of the terraces on the office building relative to the terracing in the roof plans of the phase 1, 2, and 3 to the north of us, and also starts to introduce the different form of the hotel shape, which we've carved up and articulated in such a way to kind of peel it back and step back some of that massing as well, as it sits on top of the existing office building, which is this square here. We are showing, as has been mentioned, a path connection across Harbor Street that connects to the second floor path that is approved as part of phases 1, 2, and 3, but we'll walk through that as we get more detailed and into the plans. This is really about showing the spatial separation between all of the forms, between the office buildings and between the residential buildings, and the relationships and the kind of step backs and a heavy articulation that's happening to the form of the south parcel, phases 4 and 5, and also shows you the relative heights as we kind of step up as we head more towards Yonge Street on the south parcel. The overall composition is delineated here through the notes. I'll just walk you through. So phase 5, this is the 40-story office and hotel, which is this component. So this piece here, which I'm running the cursor over, is the hotel that's sitting on top of the office floor plate. This is the existing Toronto Star office with the adjacent office wing to the north of that as well. There's a break at the second and third floors between the 4 and 5 phases. We do continue to have retail at grade. The second floor level of the overall plan I'll walk you through is a lot of the hotel function that supports the hotel component of the program. So it has restaurants, a ballroom, and also a food hall. And then we have the 22 stories of terraced office building on the east side of the site that is overlooking the new park. In terms of the plan, the Yonge Street Promenade, which is the heavy green arrow. The mid-block north-south connection, which is this purple arrow. On the north parcel, we have an east-west connector that comes across that leads out to Friedland right here. We also have a mid-block connection that goes back to Yonge Street, which is here. As you head south, in the south parcel, that north-south connector continues to run through on the same axis. There is a mid-block connection that does lead out to Yonge Street, and that jogs and has 2 walkways that lead from that point out to the east side of the site. You can see that a bulk of the ground floor is retail, CRU units on the north and the south half. This is the office program, office lobby for the main office building, which has access off of Friedland, but also has access to a drop-off drive court in the middle of the block here. All the loading and all the servicing is accessed by this ramp that takes you right down to all the below-grade truck loading docks. It's a very similar configuration, in fact, to the first phase, to the north parcel here, where we had the below-grade loading access through a ramp. We had a car drop-off area for pickup and drop-off for the 3 buildings, and we had a mid-block north-south pedestrian connection that comes through here as well, and that feeds back out to Yonge. So we're really mirroring what's happening on the north parcel in the south parcel. We have an office lobby at this location, and then we have the hotel lobbies here, and then we have the office lobby, which is at the base of the existing Toronto Star building. The green here represents where we're cutting back, and I'll show you that in a bit more detail, where we're cutting back that base that I was describing that is currently elevated from Yonge Street and Queens Quay, but we're dropping that down to grade to make that a bit more accessible at grade. The views on the left are views of the north parcel and the mid-block passageway that leads up from Harbour up to Lakeshore. And then we've got a series of views showing how that translates and comes south and heads south into a north-south connector that comes through the south parcel. Coming off of Queens Quay. So this is a view from Queens Quay with the existing Toronto Star building on the left here, coming through retail at the base. The car court is in the middle, but there is a direct connection that comes right out. Up above that is the program areas related to the hotel. So the ballrooms and those function spaces are on this second floor level. Then at the north end, this is a view looking from the north side of Harbor Street South. So that's that mid-block connection with the proposed elevated path connection that comes across Harbor Street that then also marks the entrance into the at-grade connection, mid-block connection, which runs north-south through the middle of the block. And this is the current overall ground floor plan as a kind of composite plan. And Sarah from NAC will walk us through this in a minute, but I just wanted to set this up as an overall composite plan that kind of shows the relationship between the two sites, shows the relative width of the existing north-south proposed connection, and a very similar opening on the south side in the new parcel as it comes down. You pass through that component, and then you're into the drop-off car court, and you would continue on a pedestrian path that comes along the edge of the lobbies and then brings you down into Queens Quay. This is the second floor path diagram and consolidated floor plan that shows you the first three phases to the north with the path connection that comes through, comes across Lakeshore, heads east and across Friedland to the Menkes development, continues south and hits Harbor Street. The current plan shows a whole series of stairs, elevators, and connections that would have to take you down to roughly the P1 level to then pass under Harbor Street to come back up and then try to get back up to this level. So that disconnect between the connection of a very large office program to the path network is why we're really proposing the second floor path connection to maintain that continuity as it comes across Harbor. This brings you into both the second floor lobby area of the office and also the second floor program and lobby areas and ballroom areas of the hotel function as well. The views on the left are a few views as you're coming across Lakeshore. You're looking south through the passageway that runs north-south through phases 2 and 3. And beyond in the distance is the southern parcel that you're looking towards. And then this is the consolidated landscape plan that I will ask Sarah to speak about from NAC.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So on ground level, we were following the forestry-scaping at the street level. We were following the Lower Yonge precinct plan and Lower Yonge public realm concept plan that was presented by Adam earlier, to somehow comply with the material palette and also the softscaping that was proposed on those plans. And also in the mid-block connection, we have followed what we proposed for the north block. If you go to the next slide, so on Harbor Street, we were proposing a double alley of trees with a bike path in the middle, and then with the patio pavers up to the building face. On Yonge Street is a promenade street, and with the bike lane at the side of the sidewalk next to the road. Same kind of pavers, unit pavers, patio take pavers to the edge of the building. If you go to the next slide, we have shown the material palette as was suggested by Waterfront Toronto in those studies that was presented earlier. On Harbor Street, on the top, we're showing those paleo take pavers On Freeland Street, on the right side, we're showing concrete, cast in place concrete pavers. On the south side along Queensquay, we're showing the granite pavers up to the face of the building. And on the left side along Yonge Street, we're showing patio pavers to the face of the building again. And also on center in the mid-block connection, we're showing the different sizes of gray granite pavers with the same design as what we have on the north block for phases 1, 2, 3. If you go to the next slide, so these were the design for the ground level. For the rooftop of the hotel, we're proposing to have a pool and a pool deck, as is shown with brown, number 2 and 5 on the drawing. And then on the north side, we were proposing a lookout on the north east corner and a series of shade structures or like seating areas, lounge areas on number 3 next to the building. And if while we're moving to the south, we're proposing a series of multi-stem taller shrubs and a berm with a subscaping and somehow stepping down to the south terrace area with a bar at the corner, which is like a lookout to the lake and Yonge Street, and which would be the number 6, and then a lounge and sitting area in center, fireplaces, and then on the side again we're gonna have windscreens and some sort of sitting area, which would be number 1 on the slide. And that would be it for landscape. And these are just some precedent images of what can happen at the ground level in terms of mixing different sizes of pavers or having different colors of pavers for that mid-block connection.
And we're providing this just as a blow up to this whole discussion about the way we're modifying the ground floor of the existing building. And you can see the existing columns of the tower coming down here. And in plan, what we've really done is we're pulling back that lobby floor plate and getting rid of the elevated portions of that part of the program so that we can make a more generous pathway and keep the continuity and the width of the promenade as it's coming down Yonge Street, even though we are working around those existing columns. And just to show this idea of the changing relationship of that Yonge Street building as it comes down to grade relative to some of the other elements that we're proposing. The other thing you can pick up here is this is the entry portal that leads you into the mid-block east-west connection that comes in off of Yonge Street, past the office lobby, past the hotel lobby into the drop-off areas. You make your way east through the middle of the block. And a section detail that shows the modifications that we're proposing. So we are showing, this is a section cut along Queens Quay. You can see the existing column. There is the upper portion of the floor plate that we are maintaining, including the kind of setback line at that point, but we are cutting back at the ground floor and getting rid of the elevated walkway that exists here and moving that glass line for the lobby right to the back to really open up the base of that tower and to open up that north, south and east-west connection, both along Yonge Street and Queens Quay. Along Queens Quay, we do have retail that we're proposing as part of the base, and the mid-block connection entry point, which is located adjacent to the existing office building. And then as we come around to the east side, this is facing the park. There is the access to the ramp, which is positioned here. The 2 entrances and exit portals to the drop-off area and pickup area in the middle of the block are located here. The office lobby is in the center of the plan. And then we've got the retail frontages along Harbor and along Queens Quay that end facing the park. And then a elevation of the north side of the building with the mid-block connection located here, the proposed elevated path connection with its glazing that leads into that whole second floor public retail and public food hall and lobby access points as well. Grade-related retail facing Harbor Street with a few renderings to support the elevation. And then the view looking at Queens Quay from a bit of a distance that shows that elevated, or sorry, the increased scale of the openings and the setbacks along the corner of the intersection at Queens Quay and at Yonge Street to really open that up and to allow the north-south promenade that's coming down Yonge Street to find its way right to Queens Quay with a much broader width for access and circulation, and a straight-on view of the Yonge Street side. So you've got the base of the existing office with its existing reclad columns and the tower up above, the mid-block connection, and then the hotel lobby, which is facing Yonge Street. We're putting this in just as a kind of a quick summary of how the vehicle circulation operates. On the north parcel, there's an access ramp here. There's a drop-off pickup area, which is in the middle of the block, which is accessed off of Friedland. And then the loading is all below grade, accessed off of this ramp. A similar configuration is proposed on the south parcel, where we've got the ramp, the vehicles in and out, providing access to the hotel lobby drop-off area, and also kind of a secondary access into the office. But this drop-off pickup area is more about providing access for the hotel. Similar in intent and purpose as the drop-off pickup area in the north parcel, which services the hotel and the base of the third phase. And a close-up view of how that operates and some of the dimensions that we're providing in terms of the mid-block connection. So this is the 5-meter wide mid-block connection that comes through from Yonge Street and then adjusts and shifts people through to one that's located along the north and one that's also located along the south side. And then the second floor plan just showing the path connection coming across into the food hall, access into the office lobby and into the hotel, and to the ballrooms and the pre-function spaces for the hotel. We've just provided some of the typical floor plans for the office just to show the kind of office floor plates that we are providing as we move up through the form. And as we start to hit the hotel floor plates that are pulled away from the existing Toronto Star office with the gap that really separates those two elements, and then that tower hotel form that becomes the piece that's sitting on top of the existing office building as well. A series of renderings and views to show the studies that we're undertaking to develop the cladding and the cladding ratios. And Juhi from WSP will speak about some of the sustainability targets that we're targeting with the cladding systems. But we've provided a whole series of different views and just some ideas of how we're starting to articulate the glazing and the stepping of the east office tower as well. The shape and the form of the hotel as it sits, cradles, and sits on top of the existing Toronto Star office building, which is being reclad as well. And then a section through that, through the office. And I will pass it on to Juhi from WSP to talk about sustainability.
Hi, this is Juhi. I'm part of the sustainability team here at WSP. I've been working on One Yonge since phase 2 and 3 of the project. I will go into a bit of the details, but overall, in terms of the vision that we have for this site, previous phases have all targeted Tier 2 as a residential development. We will continue to pursue Tier 2 for both phase 4 and phase 5 under version 3. Currently, a comprehensive strategy is being put together to look at the Waterfront Toronto minimum green building requirement, and of course, the Corn and Shell version 4 certification for the office towers. Next, please. in terms of the strategy that we are aware currently is that there will be EV infrastructure provided for at least 20% of the parking spaces, and remaining parking spaces will be EV ready. Bird-friendly glazing will be provided for the first 16 meters, which is minimum, but we want to mention that phase 1, 2, and 3, over 95% of the required exterior glazing was treated. And we're currently looking at, again, more better bird-friendly strategy on the review for phase 4 and 5. The stormwater runoff is something that is, we all know that's very challenging for this area of the city, where we're looking at the stormwater runoff to retain a minimum of 10 millimeter depths of rainfall within the 72 hours. This is a strategy in combination with looking at the low flow plumbing fixtures and reducing the non-potable water use at the site. Currently, a portion of phase 2 and 3 is reusing the harvested rainwater for indoor flushing. And again, we're looking at a similar strategy for phase 4 and 5 for the office towers as well. Of course, the rainwater that's captured 100% will be used for the irrigation demand. And finally, we're also looking at sort of the overall building life cycle impact and looking at how to keep maintain the current structure of the Toronto Star building and making sure that we can provide a high performing building. Next. In terms of energy strategy, phase 1 that is currently under construction will be connected to Enwave district energy system. We're currently working with Enwave to review again what the best connection would be for phase 2, 3, 4, and 5. Our team had completed an energy strategy study for Pinnacle to determine the potential benefits for various energy sources and how to make sure that there's a right target set for the carbon resilience strategies and consistent with the new TGS, TEDI, GHGI, and TUI targets. As we all know, this commercial office buildings are quite aggressive in their sustainable target in this area, and we're trying to set up a building benchmarking system for them. Next. Again, the list strategy is currently under review by WSP and the design team, and we're currently looking at to combine the lessons learned from previous phases. But again, given that this is a commercial tower in downtown core, we're looking at the competitive marketplace that are near. The sustainability team at WSP is involved currently at 30 Bay, CIBC Square, so we're really looking to bring the lessons learned on this commercial tower into this project as well. Next. Finally, in terms of the ecological strategy, I highlighted earlier on. So in terms of the water management strategy, we are managing the rainfall on site to be consistent with the TGS Tier 2 requirements. Collecting rainwater will be used for irrigation. Phase 2 and phase 3, again, we're looking at how to reuse the toilet flushing. So phase 2 and 3, the gray water use was used for the hotel and the affordable housing portion of the building. And again, we're looking at how to bring into the new hotel and the office component for phase 4 and 5. In terms of landscaping strategy, NAC has outlined that already, but in combination with sustainability, over 50% of the landscape will be consisting of native and drought-tolerant plant species. And again, we're looking at how we can use the roof to provide a biodiverse green roof to support pollinator species. I think that was the last slide, David.
Yeah, it was. And I think that essentially is the end of the presentation. Unless there are any other questions, we're happy to address comments and questions.
Okay, thanks very much, David. I'll go to questions first, and just to help facilitate the questions and the comments, I thought maybe group them into categories of building, planning, and public realm, and then sustainability. So I'll start off comments related to the building. George, do you have any questions?
I'm not sure I'm in the right subject category, but I was going to ask about the base of the Star building.
Yep.
If David could go to one of the ground floor plans.
This one might be
right. Okay, that'll do. I just want to make sure I understand this. So the floor level of the lobby is staying where it is now, so that let me correct me if what I'm saying is incorrect. And so that whole floor plate inside the glazing line is lobby, and it's at that sort of meter plus above ground level, which is the level of the street sidewalk. So there's nothing but the lobby for the office building comes right out to that glazing line on all four sides of that plan figure. Have I understood that correctly?
Yeah, we've pulled the glazing line back a bit, George, but it does currently exist at that existing raised level. So you can see that in the plan here, there are some stairs that lead you up to that level. But the objective was to really cut this open and to pull it back so that people could circulate against. It is a solid wall up above, below a meter and a half, and up above that you're looking into the lobby, but you do have a broader walkway and promenade on both sides.
Right. Okay. All right. So I understood that correctly then. I think that might be my only building question, Paul.
Okay. Others, let's just go down the list. Peter, are you there?
Yeah, my building question is about the glass. The renderings show different levels of reflectivity. Could you just go around the building and talk about what the glass is and how transparent it is or isn't? One of your principal tools for creating a bit of moderation and modulation is using different types of glass. I'd just like to hear more about that.
Yeah, at this point, Peter, we haven't developed that in detail because we're still working with WSP to figure all that out. But the idea is definitely to introduce a variety of glass colors and tints so that we can break up or not break up, but just differentiate some of the elements. And it's something I think that we have to continue to refine as we go through this next phase.
But generally, are you leaning towards more transparent or more reflective? Are you leaning towards cooler colors, or I see some browns showing up here?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the tricks with these renderings is sometimes you don't get the right color tone, but it is something that I would have to say we're still working on trying to refine. It's hard to kind of pin down an actual percentage of tint or where,
Right, and it's true this is schematic.
But it's, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Bridget, please.
I had a question. If we could go back to image 40, which is the one that you looked at earlier with George, which shows the parcel 4 and 5. I can't read the dimension of the east-west pedestrian zone that is outlined in green, and both in the northerly and the southerly version. Sorry, my screen is such, so maybe where your cursor is, what is that dimension for the pedestrian portion?
That's 2.15, and then on the bottom it's 2.85.
And then in the north-south direction?
It is 5.5 and 10. The throats or the openings are 10.3 and 9.2. And then towards the middle here, it's the 5.5. There are some structural columns here that are, still early days in terms of their positioning, Bridget. And I think we've got, it's certainly a comment that we have to address as we try to refine the structure for the for this mid-block connection.
And then I didn't really see any sections in this area, but is everything covered? Like there's no light penetration from above in this portion. So I'm just trying to think about, I can't quite understand light to dark or skylight to, so nothing is skylit in this.
No, nothing is skylit in this section. The opening that goes full height is in the north block. This area is a 1-story high passage because we do have a contiguous second floor that has the hotel ballrooms and all their pre-function spaces. So that's the challenge that we're facing right now, is that all of that is sitting directly above this space. And so that's where I think the comment came from. Is there a way to bring some light through that second floor into this zone?
So my other question is whether for the existing Toronto Star building, whether you considered a double facade for that area. Given the existing building is fairly robust, was that even part of the kind of early conversations?
No.
Okay. And then do you know what the projected population is of your 5 blocks? So I understand it's mixed use, and I understand, you know, there's condos to the north and office hotel to the south, but I'm just trying to kind of get a handle on population or number of people just in these 2 blocks that would be working and living there. Is there any?
I don't have that at my fingertips. I mean, it's something we could try to quickly pull together.
That would be
Maybe while we're
appreciated.
talking, I could ask Jody or somebody or Alex on our side to help us do that.
Okay, that would be really helpful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to Jana, please.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, David. Just one quick question. It's the slide that you talked about you used to talk about the spatial separation. It was like a site plan from above near the beginning. Yeah, that one, 19. Is there really a gap? Looking at the hotel Star building, and there seems to be a gap between the hotel and the Star building, just at the curved portion on the east side.
Yeah, might be better to look at it on the that side elevation.
Okay.
Yeah, here it is. This is the gap right here. And
okay.
You know, part of the reason is that, you know, the floor to floors don't align because we are working with an existing floor to floor on the existing building. So, you know, one of the easiest ways to deal with that is to kind of pull the buildings apart, create the void. And because we are also transitioning from an office to a hotel, it was an appropriate way to kind of to deal with this fact that we are butting up against the side of this, but we didn't want to kind of fully engage it. We wanted to come to the edge of it and then straddle over top of it.
So this may be early days, but I'm just curious about things, you know, like limiting distance. Like, does that end up being an opaque envelope there?
Primarily, yeah. I mean, the core is close to that area too, and then that is some of the stuff that we've got to work out in detail. But that is one of the ways we're going to have to deal with that. There's certainly code issues associated with that.
Yeah, and then just final question: any initial ideas at granted it's high up, but the soffit where the hotel portion spans over that gap?
Haven't looked at that, but that would be something that we would be looking at.
Okay, thanks, Dave.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Jana. Pat, please.
Yeah, I might have missed it, but I was just curious to get a slightly better explanation about the existing building and what the strategy is. Is the idea that the glass is transparent enough that you can see the structure of the existing building through it? That's what it looks like in the elevational rendering.
Yeah, no,
I'm just
not necessarily, Pat. I mean, I think we are keeping that existing structure. It's not. I mean, it's a pretty simple concrete frame structure, and I think again, these renderings, unfortunately, sometimes you get more transparency than you're bargaining for. But the objective is for that to be, transparent, but not fully transparent. That you're intended to read the structure. The structure would also be clad with spandrel panels at the floor and probably at the columns, so that we can minimize the glass to or maximize the solid to glazed ratios. We don't want to, we want to be better than 80-20. We probably want to be closer to 40-60 with this building.
Right. And so why are we keeping the building? You have to?
We've gone back and forth on that, but I think at this point there were no real advantages to tearing it down. We felt that it was a reasonable thing to do to keep that concrete frame in place and to build over it and around it, for a number of reasons. So That's what we've kind of settled on right now.
And just one last question, which is out of my topic of expertise. I'm just curious as to why loading and parking is off Freeland. Did you look at were there any other options other than Freeland?
No, we were basically directed to really put all of that off of Friedland, because Friedland was seen as being the kind of the service street, because Lakeshore we couldn't get access, Yonge Street because of the promenade,
yeah,
Harbor Street because it's a significant east-west connector, and Queens Quay because of transit, and it's
yeah.
public realm significance. So Friedland was the only free street.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Pat. Eric, sort of any comment first? Sorry, any other comments people have on generally questions on the buildings themselves? Otherwise, I want to move to sort of an all-encompassing category of planning-related matters. And I would propose Eric lead that off.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Well, my first question is regarding so I don't know if that's about the building, but it's the pedestrian bridge. So to me, it's part of the building. I see that there was an LPAT agreement that deals with it that says it should be underground. So Mike, what's the status here? Is that something that's being renegotiated, or something that is already, there's a pre-approved, I guess, understanding that there's an overhead bridge, or is it still in discussion?
So it's Nader Kadri from City Planning. So it's been proposed at this stage, so it's under consideration, and the applicant submitted an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment to support the variety of changes that they've shown you today.
Okay, so it's not, that's one of the proposal that's on the table about whether it's appropriate and being considered.
That's correct.
Okay, and and my other question would be, just as if we move away from the now talking about the general public realm. So I heard that I was trying to understand from the public realm palette that that generally what is being proposed along the horizontal plane on the public realm is consistent with the lower Yonge precinct plan. I'm just trying to understand, where is it different, or where is it maybe something unique is being proposed or different? So just to understand what the final picture.
So it's Nader again from City Planning. My understanding is that the streetscapes are consistent with the Lower Yonge Public Realm Plan. The opportunity for something that's maybe slightly different would be the mid-block connection, which is currently shown as that tunnel between the buildings.
So that would be the area that are really within, under kind of the building type of thing.
That's correct. And so the Lower Yonge precinct plan did contemplate mid-block connections, and I think Adam touched on that a little bit earlier on. And so the mid-block connection here with this proposal is consistent with the location of where it was in the LPAT settlement. It's just changed in terms of form and function.
Mm-hmm. And what is the clearance of the on these pathway those path connection? What is the clearance between the ground and the underside of the inside the building, like in the places that are open? Yes. What are the clearance? I would say vertical clearance between ground and on this side of a finished ceiling. That's the equivalent of a 1-story.
Yeah. Yes.
So that would be
meters,
4.5.
Yeah, roughly.
Okay.
Okay, Eric.
I no more questions.
Okay, Nina Marie.
Sorry, it just takes a moment to unmute.
Yeah, sure.
Much for the presentation. I don't have specific questions at this moment, but I will hold my comments on landscape and public realm until the comment period.
Okay. Let's go to sustainability.
I have a question, Paul.
I'm sorry.
It's Fuddy. I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. Can you go to on our slide deck there, page 32 and 33? I don't know what it is on yours. I'm trying to see. It has a sequence of vignette renderings on the left side of the page and a kind of plan view. Yeah, I think it's these guys here. They're all on one page on ours. Could you maybe just quickly point to which drawing is where? Is this one? That's the corner, the south. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, yeah. This is the, you're looking north on the mid-block connection from Harbor Street. So phase 1 is on this side. This is phase 2, and you're looking north, back up to the city into Lakeshore.
Okay.
And then this is at the corner of Harbor and Yonge Street here. So this is the Yonge Street Promenade. And then you're looking slightly east towards on Harbor Street. So you're viewing this corner here.
Okay. In our package, they're all on one page. Do you mind pointing at the same thing on the next slide? Yeah.
Sure. Then this is the view looking, you've gone in a bit and we're looking, I'm just trying to get oriented here. Yeah, we're kind of at the bottom here, looking north.
Okay.
So you're a bit further into that mid-block connection. And then this is the view at the north side of Harbor Street, looking across the street. So this is the entrance into the one-story high mid-block connection that's running through between the phases 4 and 5 in the south parcel. It's this view.
And sorry to bother you, and just the
No
last
problem. And then this is the last one. This is that same view, and then this is the view from Harbor looking south across the at the that mid-block connection.
Okay, thank you. And just one other really quick question. Were there any microclimate sort of wind tunnel simulation studies, especially around the public realm, ground level, assuming things like the lake will have a huge wind impact and other microclimatic studies for the site?
We have done those, and they would have been part of the submission. I just don't have them at my fingertips to be able to discuss them.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Paul, can I ask a follow-up to Fadi's question?
Go ahead,
I thought
George.
we were going to have a public realm component to this. I wanted, what is the level of the rooftop landscaping for the hotel?
That is at the top of the hotel. Do you mean
what floor level?
It's about the 41st floor because it's 40 stories.
And it's basically Fadi's question. How are what measures are you taking to make that surface habitable so your hotel guests won't be being blown off?
Yeah, we'd have tall wind screens as part of that, George. They would be like 4 or 5 meters high, so you'd be completely enclosed essentially.
Really, all the way around?
Yeah. We'd have to. Yeah.
I see. Okay. All right. That'll do it. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, and maybe while you're at it, could you go to the second floor level plan?
This one?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is showing the path connection coming across. Yep. This is the core of the existing Toronto Star building and its related structure, the hotel and the office core, and then this is the east office core on the facing the park. And then all of the yellow is the ballrooms, back of house kitchens, meeting areas, and associated program space, pre-function space. And then this is office space, and the proposal here is to have a food hall, food court that's there to service the office space that's part of this development, which is a very large percentage.
So the north-south walkway underneath this is partly under the east edge of the Star building, right? Is that right?
Correct.
That row of columns is part of the Star in the lower section.
Yeah.
I see. I was just looking to see if there was any place where you could get some light, but I suppose north of the Star building, you might have a fighting chance in either the beige or the blue cutting something through. Anyway, it's certainly worth looking for. So.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, thanks, George.
That's it.
Are there any other questions people have on either general planning or the public realm aspects?
Yes, public realm from me.
Okay.
Could you go back to the ground floor plan? I think it's the one right there. Oh, I think it's slide 40. The one to the left. I guess it's 26.
Yes, the composite one. Yeah.
No, it's the ground floor. Sorry.
That's the ground floor consolidated, showing both faces.
You go to the slide that shows the difference between pedestrian space and vehicular space, the green and yellow.
Yeah.
It's number 40.
So the 10-meter wide mid-block connection that penetrates all the way through phase 1, 2, and 3 into this area here is restricted to 5 meters wide in the middle of this phase 4, 5. Why did you do that? Is there suddenly half the number of people who want to move through there, or why can't it continue through as a 10-meter wide space?
Well, it was something that we were trying to maximize that circulation for pedestrians, but we're trying to also balance the need to have drop-off areas for the hotel parking, temporary casual parking pickup areas. This is where the buses also come in to service the pickup and drop-off for the hotel. So it was kind of a push and pull between that continuous connection right through the block, and also the service vehicle area, as well as the kind of pre-lobby area for people getting out of cars and going into the office building, and then the office building lobby itself, and then the length of the ramp. All of this stuff is just trying to massage and keep all of those pieces working together. So that's why you end up with that restriction, or reduction rather.
You okay, Peter?
I'm not okay, but
No.
I don't have any more questions.
Other questions?
No.
Paul, I had a question. I guess at our last meeting, we actually saw a presentation of this whole precinct by WSP, and there was a kind of images that looked at this lower portion of Yonge Street. How does this work? Like, your work is further ahead than that work, and I guess I'm just trying to understand has their work been, have you guys talked to each other? Or I'm just trying to understand procedurally a kind of urban design look at the precinct relative to a specific project that is already further along.
Okay. David, are you
sorry, are you referring to, is that the traffic study or the, I'm not sure which.
Yeah, it might not be, you may not be the right person to answer this, and I'm not sure who is, but we actually saw an issues identification project at our last meeting where we looked at this entire precinct, and WSP was actually the proponent for the entire urban design study. And then I'm looking at your work, especially along Yonge Street, and really describing the public realm in Yonge Harbor, Lakeshore. And so I'm just trying to understand these two bodies of work and whether, have you had input from them or have they had input from you? It's just a procedural question that I'm just trying to understand.
Yeah.
Hi, Bridget. I can answer that, David. This is Alex Marshall with Pinnacle. We have met with WSP a few weeks ago to talk about their plan and how it interacts with our plan. So yes, we are speaking with them. They are designing the streetscaping and the public realm component on Yonge and Lakeshore. That's been secured through the Section 37 agreements. So we have contributed to the city to help them have WSP deliver that urban realm concept design that comes through the Lower Yonge precinct plan and the public realm plan that we saw earlier today. It will be implemented, and yes, we are talking together with WSP and our design team.
So what is being presented by NAC today? And is that what will end up moving forward or not?
Yes. So on Yonge and Lakeshore, it is consistent with what WSP will be implementing and designing, whereas all other street frontages will be our responsibility, but all frontages conform with the Lower Yonge plan.
But the Lower Yonge plan was in issues identification, right? So
There was a transportation EA that was previously done, and all those plans conform, or what we're talking about today, the implementation, all conform back to the EA that was previously done and approved.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, before we move to sustainability, any other questions on planning or public realm? I just have one on general planning, and it relates to the amount of parking that's actually proposed. I saw in the statistics was 1,112 spaces, and I wondered, is that what the bylaw requires? Is there room to modify that given the location and the obviously proximity to Union and the future major LRT transit hub there?
So it's Nader Kadri from City Planning. There's absolutely flexibility to adjust that parking rate as part of this process. I think that there's probably more of a desire from the developer standpoint to have that many parking spaces to support the development, because I think it's just the developer responding to the market conditions for office space. I don't know, Alex, if you've got
not been finalized at all.
No. At this point in time, it's not been finalized. Obviously, they've secured modifications to zoning by way of their site specifics. I don't know, and Alex, you might be able to comment on this a little further. Has the parking rate increased as part of this revised proposal, or is it still staying the same?
The minimum parking rates are staying the same. That's what's been secured in the site-specific zoning bylaw.
And the proposal that we have before us today is in excess of the minimum rates.
That's correct.
To respond to market conditions.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And I just have one other question, and it relates to public art. I know you're only at Schematic now, but what is your thinking now on public art? In particular, I'm interested on, demarking the foot of Yonge Street as a very special place. As you may know, there is a very old City of Toronto installation on the south side of Queen's Quay that is in need of substantial restoration or perhaps a total rethink. So I don't want to see that opportunity missed. Where is the thinking now on that? I don't know whether David or who's the best person to answer that.
I can touch on that. We have advanced a public art plan for the North Block, which has gone to TPAC for a piece of art in the north west portion of the site. But to keep the discussion on the South Block, we have not yet advanced that, as we're just in the rezoning stage. So your suggestion will be noted, and we will keep moving forward. We have secured the amount of public art funds already in the existing Section 37 agreement for the South Block. So we will move that forward and take your suggestion into consideration.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to move now to the category of sustainability regarding questions.
Paul, sorry, this is Ren from City of Toronto.
Yeah.
Before you move from this topic, I just wanted to clarify something about the north-south walkway. I think I heard from David that the Toronto Star floor plate sits on top of the walkway. And I just quickly checked my submission, the plans that were submitted for review, and I don't see that. I think the walkway is right on the edge of the Toronto Star, but the Toronto Star floor plate is not above the walkway.
Okay, thank you. Can we move then to sustainability? Any questions, Jeff, first?
Hey, Paul. I don't have a lot of questions right now. I guess I saw a reference to N-wave cooling. I'm just curious what the heating source that you guys are going with right now. And then my other just general question is just, how has the design been informed by some of the conversations around COVID and indoor air quality? And if there's any insight or conversations that have happened around that about ventilation and other aspects. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, to be 100% honest, we haven't gotten into that level of discussion yet because we're not into, the types of filters on these units or the types of units and the kind of air changes. That's just it's certainly something that we will be monitoring as we kind of develop the design, but there's nothing concrete to report on that yet. There's a lot of different approaches or things that are under consideration for the office design in the marketplace, and we just have to see what's going to fall out of this experience. Just don't know yet.
Okay, Kevin?
Thanks very much. And I note the commitment to Tier 2 TGS. That's great. Can we get a rundown of some of the strategies that we're thinking about to maintain that compliance?
Hi, this is Drew here. If you go to, I guess, the next slide, a lot of these requirements come from Tier 2 version 3 requirements that we have looked at. So the other requirements are pretty straightforward. That shouldn't be problematic. As we all know, for high density, typically it's the stormwater and the energy strategies that are more demanding for office tower of Tier 2. So as we outlined, in terms of the stormwater, it is a combination of looking at the low flow plumbing fixtures, looking at how we can harvest the rainwater to use for the portion of the buildings. So that strategy is put together to see how we can apply for phase 4 and 5. And we have done that successfully at phase 2 and 3. In terms of the energy strategy, again, it's very early stages. So because we're so early in the project, we have done an energy strategy to look at various measures that the design team will have to take into considerations, and we're currently looking into that.
So do we have any idea how we're going to meet the TEDI requirement of 30 or the greenhouse gas intensity of 15?
Not specifically for this site yet, because again, it's a schematic. We're at really early stages, but our team have worked on a lot of office towers that have met Tier 2 before, so we're bringing that to the table. And it's a bit of a combination because currently, we're looking at the how to reduce the spacing heating reduction, looking at the glazing ratios and the building facade, and the combination of what the HVAC system that will support that.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Kevin?
Thanks.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions at this point they want to ask on any topic?
Well, I've got a question on sustainability.
Yeah, okay.
Just using the slide that's in front of us, you're using the icon with the recycled water. You're actually using recycled water for toilet flushing in phase 2 and 3, and you're considering it for phase 4 and 5. Could you just be a bit more emphatic about that and say you're extending it to 4 and 5? And I noticed that the runoff to be retained is a minimum of 12 millimeter depth or 10 millimeter depth. I've been in Toronto when 10 millimeters of rain falls in 4 minutes. It's if that's a daily number, it's completely inadequate.
I'm going to interpret that as a question. Who would like to answer that?
And I can answer that. Yeah, I definitely agree. In the way, stormwater is very challenging in the city currently. Currently, the TGS requires the minimum of 10 millimeter within the 72 hours to be retained. So that is something we're currently looking at. And again, that's why just retaining on site is not enough. We have to look at a combination of how to reuse the harvested rainwater. That is a challenge that we had faced at phase one at previous phases of the project where it was residential development, and we are looking at for current phases.
Okay. Any other questions from any member of the panel? Otherwise, I want to move to comments.
Paul, just one quick question. Was ground source or geothermal ever considered for the site? And is there any discussion, you're particularly for the later phases, you're directly adjacent to the park, and whether anyone's ever discussed using that for like a bore field or anything like that?
I can answer that. Yeah, it's in early. It was part of our energy strategy to look at potential, again, combination of renewable energy systems. We haven't really landed on anything yet, but we're discussing that with Pinnacle.
Okay. Okay, can we move to comments then? And I'll start off with Betsy, please.
Betsy, can I go?
Sorry, I couldn't
apologize,
hear.
Betsy. Can I go closer to the end, please?
Yeah, if you want.
Thank you.
George?
Hello?
George,
Can
are
you hear
you
me?
there? Ready for comments?
Yes, I am. Okay, here goes. A minor point to start with, and then a couple of more major ones. The minor one has to do with the ground floor of the Toronto Star building. That panel below the glazing at 1.5 meters is worrisomely high. So I would just recommend that the glass in that lobby needs to come right down to the floor, so that the pedestrians in the, I mean, I do agree you've improved the sidewalk condition. I'm not arguing that. But the view from outside into the building is a little bit iffy. So get the sill of that glazing as low to the floor as you possibly can. That's point number one. Point number two, wearing my ancient opponent of pedestrian bridges hat, I would oppose the bridge over Harbor Street. I think it can the system can logically end in phases 1, 2, and 3 and doesn't need to be extended to 4 and 5. So I vote for no pedestrian bridge across Harbor Street. It's a brand new street, and it would be nice to preserve its kind of openness of views. By the way, I do not have a problem with the high up in the air bridge connecting from the hotel across to the top of the office building. That's a different matter altogether, and I don't have any issue with that. I agree with Peter Busby that the narrowing down of the north-south path where the drop-off is problematic, and so every effort should be made to sort of increase that width. And I was pleased to learn that I'd misunderstood the relationship of the star floor plate to that north-south spine. And so I would try to get at least a couple of light cones through that second floor plan, accepting that it is going to be an extension of the hotel functions. I'm not disputing that, but that at least at a couple of points on that north-south spine, ideally they'd be in the kind of corners of the car court area. There would be a significant void through the second floor that would actually improve the second floor lighting itself, but it would also bring light down to the ground plane. Those are my comments. Thanks.
Thank you, George. Let's go to Peter.
Yeah, I have two major comments. The first one is around the facades of the buildings. This is a very large, very dense building at the foot of Yonge Street. As you arrive in the harbor or consider the waterfront, these are significant visual public buildings, and to me they don't demonstrate innovation in the facade treatment. They're fairly, standard visuals of elevations of monstrous Toronto buildings that have been in with us for 50 years. And I would think that given the profit that's coming to the developer of these two blocks, we could see some much more interesting development of the facades. But my second concern is the pedestrian north-south link. I find it totally unacceptable that there has to be a ballroom placed over top of that. That ballroom could be slid to the east, and daylight could be brought down to that space. And the full 10-meter width should be continued down through the full length of it, and the vehicular traffic should be moved also to the east. And by the looks of the cores, that's possible. In phase 1, 2, and 3, you managed to get the pedestrian link with daylight right through the block. I think you should be required to do it in phase 4 and 5. It's really unacceptable to have such a major high density project with a through block connector, which is going to take people to the waterfront, under a 14-foot high space under a convention center. It's just, I thought Toronto was changing their priorities in terms of the importance of the public realm. But this isn't like strictly a 70s move in terms of we don't care. What's important is that the ballroom be directly connected to the hotel. Well, that's not the case in many cities. They understand that crossing a 10-meter bridge to get to a ballroom is acceptable. So I think that whole aspect of that north-south connector has to be reconsidered before we see it again. That's my comments.
Okay, thank you, Peter. I'm going to go to Pat next because she has to leave a little early.
Yeah, thank you. I actually think that I can recognize many aspects of the architecture and the cladding, and I think that the buildings are actually looking kind of great. So I sort of disagree with Peter's comments to some measure. I do think I think it's great that you're maintaining the existing building. I just wish, and I think it is an opportunity to sort of, I don't know, show something of it, like somehow, I mean, I know it's not the most fantastic building, but that there would be maybe some amount of their cladding left. I mean, Bridget mentioned in double skin. I don't know. It just seems to me a huge opportunity to kind of make that site seem more authentic and richer as a kind of architectural expression there. So I would really encourage that. And then the last thing, I just wanted to go, if you could go to your slide number 25 of 50. And this is not really, I guess it's more to Lorna and the problems of the city. But this, we talk about investing in the public round and the expanded sidewalk around the building. And I just think that Freeland Street, the connection to the park and the flow from the building to the park, notwithstanding that there's vehicular movement along the edge of that building. Can anybody see that image? It's the one where you actually get kind of continuous paving across the street. And it just seems to me that I realize that street has to carry a fair bit of traffic, but that there's an incredible opportunity to really expand the public realm and to kind of, pedestrianize that. So I know it's not within the permission of this project, but I think it would still be worth trying to have a discussion with the city about it. That's my comments.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Bridget?
Yeah, I guess the first point was just to make sure that there is coordination between, the proponents and WSP. It's a bit confusing because HPA has WSP as their sustainability consultant, but they are also the proponent actually doing the entire public space, right, for this precinct. I just think there needs to be much more clarity about who's doing what. Then I would say that in the city presentation, they described the mid-block connections as being really directly linked to walkability of the neighborhood. And there was actually an image from one of the city people that was actually a really important one, because what you saw was an emerging public realm of both north-south and east-west connections. And I think that that is actually a really key element to the success of this entire neighborhood. I think that, it would be good. I asked the question last week or last meeting about the projected population of this precinct. And I think it would be really good to know how many people will be living both in the north and south block of this project, but also the entire precinct of this area. Because given the population, I feel that the issue of these mid-block connections and pedestrian walkability is really, really important. And so when I think about this north-south and east-west connections, I feel that it's a bit disingenuous to show it the way we're seeing it on this slide here on the screen, because the one that is number 40, where you're actually seeing the actual widths that we're really dealing with, it's really more the reality. If we could go to 40, that would be really helpful. So in a way, the continuity of the public realm, as light-filled as possible, and is really kind of, so I feel like I would agree completely with Peter's comments about the unacceptability of the width of some of the going from 10 meters to 5 meters, and then in the east-west direction heading to the park being even less. I just think for me is really problematic, and the issue of natural light. So when I think about a covered porte cochere for a hotel, I think of the Sheraton Center and the drop-offs that are located there with no natural light. So you might have a high floor-to-ceiling height, but not nice at all. And I think we can do a lot better, especially given the effort that has taken place in the block to the north. In terms of the glass tower, I guess I feel that the play between the existing Toronto Star building, while it may not be the most stellar building that we've ever had on Queen's Quay, the idea that you could actually reskin it, but actually read both the new and the existing at the same time, I would say gives it a specificity that is really different from a totally generic glass tower. And I would totally agree with Peter's point about how kind of really just generic and uninspired they look right now. And I feel that this is a very talented team that could actually produce something much more special. I feel the effort that's gone into the residential project to the north and all the effort on the exterior skin, some of that needs to be applied to the not only the Toronto Star skin, but the other skins of the other office portions of blocks 4 and 5. I think that I would agree with George in terms of no pedestrian bridge, because right now the pedestrian bridge actually ends in the food court. So even if you were to cross the pedestrian bridge, there's not even a view of the water when you get over the bridge. So it ends up in a kind of a second floor food court, which is really disappointing. If you end up having to put it underground, I feel like there's a whole infrastructure and maybe a way of treating that positively that could be great. And then finally, the park. So in a way, it's this kind of slightly fictional thing where it shows up in just about every project around it, and all we see is a green square. And when you have this, sort of the size of a small town in southern Ontario all around this park, it's a bit, I feel like, I understand that there are political issues, timing issues, but I would say that every other project in Waterfront Toronto has actually led by landscape. So Sherbourne Commons existed far before all of the buildings around it. So here we're actually, landscape is last, as opposed to leading with landscape. So I think that the issue of understanding what should happen in this park and really making it amazing given the population that it serves both locally and within the region really needs to be part of a discussion now, as opposed to being at the tail end where nothing is possible because a whole bunch of things have already been set and they're not negotiable, and so the park becomes a residual as opposed to the park having aspirations to really shape this whole precinct of the block. And I would say that in our issues ID in our last meeting, I would have thought that even if the proponent didn't have the park as part of their scope, there would need to be a conversation about the park as actually being a key catalyst or a design feature that will define the entire neighborhood, like in such an important way. The plan, every elevation, the access points to it. You have like one of the tallest buildings in all of Toronto actually looking down onto the park. It becomes another elevation. So every dimension of it needs to be so carefully thought through. And even though it may not be implemented right now, the thinking process really has to start already, because the built form all around it is pretty much set and is moving forward. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Bridget. Betsy, are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great, perfect. Thank you so much. So thank you for the presentation. I have to agree with some of the strong feelings about the public realm space. If this panel is kind of the last place that can apply critique on the public realm in this area, I'm going to really ask that the city stand with us on some of the recommendations that we're making. I kind of hesitate to even use the word recommendation because I don't think that's a strong enough word. The idea of still continually proposing above grade bridge connections between these buildings needs to stop. I mean, it's a strong no from this panel that your team and other teams keep hearing over and over and over again, and to still see them coming through as if it's some fait accompli that the path system has now been elevated and is spreading throughout the downtown is just kind of unbelievable. And then the kind of the acceptance of the design team on the fact that you can't actually make a better north, south, and east, west crossing. You're essentially bringing everyone through a large parking space because that's the way it has to be. It's like you created this problem. So you said you can't solve the problem because the problem's there, but you're the reason as a whole, not speaking personally, but as a team that the problem exists. So, I think Bridget was right in comparing it more to the Sheridan. I think what we want to see is an idea like the Calatrava, like the big Galleria. I mean, if that was your proposal, we'd say thumbs up, that's amazing. Make it a space that people want to be in. Like this is for the foot of Yonge and such a prominent site, and talking to a team that has such a depth of experience making great buildings and great places. This is like, I feel like we may be the last stand. And so I'm sorry for the strong language, but it's, I feel like you've really kind of let down the public realm. I'll reserve all comments on everything above it because I think the public realm is too important.
Okay. Thank you, Betsy. Fatty?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I also cannot stress enough the comments that are being made about the public realm, but also especially about the park that Bridget was talking about. And again, I really won't repeat them, but I would really think of public open space, especially at the foot of Yonge, with all this many people as a form of critical infrastructure more than anything else. And I think if we start thinking of it this way, it might change it on our priority list. And again, considering the sort of immense presence of tall towers in this area and the proximity of the project to the lake, I'm also a little bit concerned about thermal comfort of the public open spaces in this area. The wind shear, the wind tunnels, thermal comfort, sunlight, and the project at grade, especially if these passageways function in a way that we don't really quite still understand if they're open year round or if they're seasonally operated. If it's something like the Calatrava project that Betsy had mentioned, would some of the openings and closing be seasonally directed? I'm also thinking of those not just in terms of their thermal comfort per se, but also seasonal circulation. This area changes a lot between the summer and winter months. but knowing that there's also going to be full-time residents the size of a small town in Ontario, how hospitable will these spaces be for year-round activation? I'm also thinking in terms of seasonal heat loss and cooling that it might require to keep these places comfortable year round. So I think just a very simple diagram for next time that really takes these things into consideration beyond the solar typical kind of sun shadow studies that we see, but a bit more simulation and study of wind, of light, and of all other kinds of aspects that will make this place really attractive and exciting year round and programmable and active. I also opposed the pedestrian bridge over Harbor Street, and I think hopefully this will be a theme you might hear over and over again, but it's just really, really critical. Lastly, this is just maybe a minor note, but I think it's might be helpful for us in the future. The package itself is filled with lots of rich drawings as a dossier, but I did find it a little hard to follow. Especially some of the renderings that didn't have an index specifically to where we're looking at in the drawings. And again, it's just a way to kind of help us really understand all the material that is being presented to us in a way that's just a little bit more legible. There's a lot of exciting renderings and pretty seductive, but I'm especially troubled by some of the landscape drawings where I couldn't even fully understand where some of the sections were, what's shaded, what's above ground, what is enclosed below what, just some pretty basic legibility in the package would really go a long way. But thank you for your presentation.
Okay, thanks, Fatty. Nina Marie, you there?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate the presentation, and just trying to move us along. I will not repeat, but rather reference the comments with which I agree strongly. And now that Fatty has gone ahead of me, you'll hear many of the same references back. In particular, I'm in very strong agreement with Betsy, Bridget, and Peter, as well as Fadi. In particular, I would like to emphasize the pivotal quality of the public realm, and in particular, the centrality of the park. I recognize all of the problems that have been listed in a project of this nature, but that also holds a project of this magnitude and significance to a higher bar. That means that when you're putting a small town into the lower foot of the longest and most significant street in the world, there must then be a concomitant respect for an active public realm. And I really would like to, at the risk of annoying my colleagues on this panel because I sound repetitive, I'm going to emphasize again that in a pandemic, when we have had so much good evidence and the unintended consequence rather of staying indoors, good evidence for the importance of the outdoor experience in 4 seasons, that then necessitates greater collaboration between this team and the city, with whom I hope we stand in solidarity to say this landscape is critical. It is an investment in critical infrastructure because it's a functioning landscape. Green infrastructure is as important as the gray. I know to architects and to engineers that may seem antithetical, but on a project of this size, it really is critical. So at the risk of repeating myself, just to nod to the previous speakers, Waterfront Toronto does emphasize a leading with landscape quality. The park is critical. The green infrastructure opportunities here beyond just shading, cooling, heating, and soaking of water must be highlighted as a way to understand and bring a kind of urban nature experience to literally a population of a small town. So this is critical for us. The comments about clarity in the diagrams would really help. I think this is a very intelligent design team that I would hope wants to rise to that bar and to show as much as to tell with clear diagrams that, as Fadi has mentioned, relate to these important elements, but also to help us understand so that we can be sure that we're supporting something beyond a wing, a prayer, and a promise. So I'm wearing firmly my not supporting pedestrian bridges hat, just like George. Please reconsider the passageways, please bring light to the public realm, and please animate it in the way that it deserves and needs to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Nina Marie. Eric?
Yes. So I mean, many of my comments are in the same comes from the same place as my panel members. I think that I would say that they generally the massing itself. I do like the overall massing as it is. It is and I also very appreciate that this is it's hotel, it's employment use in the heart of the waterfront, and I think that is part of the financial district. I think that's something that is actually a very positive thing. So I'm glad that this is always being maintained. And I think from a massing perspective, I'll echo my colleague's comment that I think the Toronto Star, maybe it's a piece that just from an architectural, the way it's treated needs to distinguish itself a little bit more, or from the massing, maybe has more readability and has a special way that it's being treated. On the you heard I echo the same comment about the bridge over harbor. The second you start to keep these bridge happening, I mean, it becomes a precedent, and then it will keep happening it has the risk of just being repeated when, in fact, I just agree with my colleague. It's not necessary, shouldn't be there. Let's get rid of it. On the one thing that I think that the north-south connection, the east-west connection that are happening at grade. I think if we look at what happened to the north, there was a generosity in terms of height, of bringing light. There was I think over 2-story tall. It was a tall space. It felt like it was a pedestrian connection. Here, I think now what we've heard from my colleague is we're bringing the cars right in there. It's a 4.5 meter high space. It will be it's not a very positive space. So I agree that north-south connection needs to be rethink in terms of what it is, what is the nature, what's its function. I mean, and one thing that I would probably encourage the teams to look at is the whole pickup drop-off function and the way it's being dealt with here. I know you're trying to bring it as close as possible to the hotel, but I am actually thinking, should the pickup drop off be more treated like the Ritz-Carlton, for example, where you actually maybe you keep these function, you create a beautiful lobby area along Freeland, and yes, there is some you may have to walk through, but I think bringing the car all the way at the heart, at the center of the block, in a way, I think is obviously compromising the pedestrian quality or what you're trying to accomplish with these that north-south connection and these east-west connection. Because I would say that the way the east-west connection, if you look at the drawing that's currently in front of us, you do have, it's a driveway loop that comes back out. So you do have anyway 2 curb cut in along Freeland, but you have very small pedestrian sidewalk and then generally a blank wall on either side on both sides of where the car and the pedestrians are. So I don't think it's a very comfortable. It feels more like you are walking along a very narrow driveway to go outside into link. So that whole the whole way the pedestrian ground is treated, I think that re-examining how the car comes back in and how maybe the way you service the hotel. I know there's a challenge because they want to be close, but I think it needs to be re-explored altogether, because I think it's compromising the quality of the ground floor plane and the pedestrian experience and the whole experience of the building. Similarly, so I think we talked about there was a reference, I think obviously the call, like you on the north side of your the other phases that you have on the north side of harbor, you have columns free space along that promenade. So I mentioned, David mentioned that they were going to continue to explore that. So I think that, again, generosity of horizontal and a vertical space, column free, making it clear and making it a real experience that is more than what it is today, I think is one of those critical pieces that needs to be seen. And then finally, I would say that I think there was some question about what is the environmental study that's been done, wind study around the building. I think that I would also probably want to understand on the terraces that are happening between the upper floor above the podium level. There's a series of terraces and private open space. That would be great to understand how those are being wind impact and so on are being mitigated on these spaces. Thank you.
Okay, Jana, please.
Yeah, thanks, Paul, and thank you, Dave. And I just want to concur with my colleagues about the bridge and the other elements, and I'm just going to reserve my comments for one other aspect of the public realm. And I think this is the right slide to show it on. I think what would be incredibly helpful next time, Dave, is to see a site plan, public realm plan, where your vision for what goes on in the public realm and the pedestrian experience is explicitly drawn and designed. It's very difficult, I'm finding, to get any sense of what you believe the public realm is and its relationship to the buildings and its relationship to the north-south connection. And I think it's very telling that when you look at this plan, all of the entrances to the retail and to a lot of the offices is all around the perimeter. So the sense of porosity that you're trying, or you say that you're trying to achieve, is entirely belied by the fact that there's no entrances to any of those units. And I know that's difficult, but I think it's really important if you're going to carve ways through. Not only should you have natural light, but you should actually have entrances to the buildings. It's also really telling that on the side of that's across from the park, you have an entrance to the office and then one entrance to each of the retail units on either side. In the entire extent of that block, there's only two entrances to what would be public amenity. And I don't think that's going to be a very successful elevation to the park, nor something that starts to engage with the public, especially with the very busy curb cuts and driveways, both north and south, that bookend that one building. And I think the Star Building, I think, is a real opportunity. I'm 100% with Pat to make it more interesting, more different, more engaged. And I would also say that you should be bolder with your cuts into that floor plate. I think it's great to renovate the ground floor. So in some ways you're bringing it down to grade, but you're not really. You're eliminating all of the entrances that allow one to get up to the ground floor level and creating some sense of visual connection, but you always have to look up, basically. So you're looking at people's feet and legs. And the only two ways into the building are at the far north end of the Star Building and up a ramp. And I think you should try and carve out some entrances on the south side of the building and on the east and west. At the southern portion, maybe there's an entrance from deeper into the north-south walkway. I think you have to really crack it open and be inventive. And I know your team is more than capable. And finally, I think that the landscape, it's interesting that the rooftop has more information on it that indicates what you're thinking, the quality of that space is like, than any of the landscape drawings at grade. They're basically super graphics of paving patterns. And I think you really need to come back with a seriously notationed site plan, public realm, site circulation diagram the next time that allows us to understand the four-sided nature of this block and the differences as you're walking along there and the experiences that you're going to offer up and the relationship between the building and the public realm. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thanks, Jana. Jeff.
Thanks, Paul. You know, I think I always have a challenge with some of these developments just because it's so hard to reconcile the nature of these super tall structures with really fine-grained pedestrian realm. I just think it's really challenging. I don't think we do it very well anyway. There's some stuff about the site I actually like. I like the fact that most of the vehicular entrance is all concentrated on one side street. It is across from the park, but single loaded streets across from parks often aren't great retail streets anyway. And so, I'm typically, advocating for, pick a backside of the building and make that the backside of the building and make it as nice as you can, but then really build up the other facades and the interior through streets. So, I'm generally okay with that strategy overall. For the sustainability stuff, which is really the focus of me, obviously there's a lot of detail. I think, Tier 2, version 3, it's a good start for this kind of project. A lot of details need to be ironed out. The big piece I think you're going to have to reconcile with is going to be your greenhouse gas intensity numbers on this, particularly your heating loads. And whenever I see these projects, you should know how quickly building performance targets are going to be improving. And so what's good today is not going to be good tomorrow. The federal government last week just announced, carbon prices by 2030 going up to $170 a ton. That's a big number. So thinking about your heating, your natural gas usage, really, I think this building's got to look at future-proofing, and electrification is probably going to be a big part of the strategy, and then obviously thermal performance. I'm sure Kevin will want to weigh in a little bit on some of those elements as well. But I see, I see some challenges for getting this building in the future down to a level that's going to be truly high performance and cost effective given those sort of carbon numbers.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Kevin?
Thanks very much. I want to applaud the fact that the structure of the existing buildings being maintained. There's a carbon savings there, so that's good. And there's always a challenge of maintaining that infrastructure, so I think that's good. I think obviously Tier 2 is above the requirement right now. Jeff is absolutely right. Things are going to change. We have a kind of a step code here, so Tier 2 will be the requirement soon. I'm glad that they're going for it. I guess it's hard to sort of discuss it without the specifics. I was asking for some specifics on how this building will achieve the targets. So I look forward to seeing those specifics. Thanks very much.
Okay, thanks very much. I think that covers everyone on the panel. Is there anyone else who has any other comments they want to make? No, hearing none.
I had one comment, Paul. Just
Sorry.
for the next, this is Bridget. I just had one comment or a request that for the next presentation. In this presentation, I think it was someone from the city actually showed very good detailed sections that went through Harbor Street, Queens Quay, Friedland Street, actually showing a cross section and buildings on either side. Given the importance of the public realm and the mid-block connections, it would be really great to have an equivalent of anything in the public realm, both north-south and east-west, and I think it would be really helpful for us. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks very much, Bridget. So I'll try and summarize. There are a lot of comments there and do my best to see where we are, and then we'll give a chance for the proponent to respond, and then we do need to take a vote. I think there's consensus on a number of things here, and many suggestions for further work and further refinement. I guess I want to start off with this in terms of the importance of the location. It is the foot of Yonge Street. It's where Yonge Street starts. It is, frankly, in my view, a 100-year decision that's being made. So it really, really needs a lot of very, very careful consideration. In terms of general planning matters, I think I would be on pretty safe ground to say that there would be unanimous support for no above grade pedestrian bridge over Harbor Street. I personally feel very strong about that, and the city does have a policy against these bridges. And frankly, I personally, especially in the waterfront, don't want to see a proliferation of these. This is not Calgary East, and that's the last thing we need. I think every above grade bridge that gets built is another excuse. Well, there was one done there, so why not me? So I feel very strong about that. That's the first point. Second, it's actually related to it in terms of where the above grade bridge would enter the project. As someone said, into a food court. It's not a priority or a rationale for a bridge of that nature. I think with respect to seasonality, various comments were made under sustainability factors. And the reality is that, yeah, we live in a northern climate. Our climate is very similar to Chicago. Chicago's windier in the winter. I don't see above grade bridges all over the place in downtown Chicago, or New York got a foot of snow the other day. Similar comment there. So very, very strong on that. Second, in general planning terms, Bridget, one of our members, has asked for the projected population of the live, work, visitor population, not only this time, but several times in the past. And I think it's a very, very critical piece of information that's needed. I think we guessed that it might be the population of Gravenhurst or Aurelia last time, but we were all just ballparking. What's clear is going to be the massive number of people. And I think it's really important to have an accurate read of that as it relates to how the project will work, how it will function, and how the public realm can support a very strong north, south, and east, west connection from the city down to the waterfront. A third general comment in planning is, and I believe I made it, I would love to see the proposed number of parking spaces reduced in further refinements here. 1,100 parking spaces this close to Union and next to what will be a major LRT station. I think there's a lot of room for reduction there. It's obviously a major cost saving, as well as a practical reality given the transit options that are there now and will be there in the future. Third, it actually wasn't noted, but I want to just highlight it. Queens Quay frontage, that's a main street, and we want to make sure that the retail that is accommodated there, that goes in there, in fact, looks, feels, and smells like a main street, not just a sort of a collection of typical cookie cutter retail shops that you find almost anywhere. And I think that's very important as Queens Quay continues to develop and evolve to the east. So those are some general overall high-level comments, but I think they're very important. With respect to the building, many comments, and I'll just go through the list, from specific details to general matters. And I think on a higher level, there's several comments made about the opportunity, given the location, that the facades need to be far more interesting, more unique. They feel too generic. It feels like just another, project that could be in the financial district. And I think given the talents of this firm, obviously there are many, many possibilities to achieve that. So that's an aspiration, and I think many people echoed that. The legibility of the Star building, several people commented on that. And I guess maybe there's a difference of opinion apart some, but I think there was general consensus that in the choice of the facades and the materiality, there's an opportunity to still indicate the legibility of the original Star building. One of the, I remember I have a picture of that building when it was built, I believe in 1968, as the first sort of new building on the waterfront. And I think there's an opportunity to recognize that in some sort of architectural expression. So I'll just pass that comment along. There was strong desire for additional drawings that would clearly illustrate and show sections through the building, north, south, east, west, so we could better understand it. Right now, it seems that they were very hard to follow. They were part and parcel of other drawings. The foot of Yonge Street as a very strong location in terms of the identity of that street and expressed in the public realm, I think was a strong comment that many people made. It also obviously raised to the public arts opportunity that have not been thought about yet for the South Block, but I particularly feel strong about that. It should be recognized, it should be maximized, it should take advantage of public realm, identity, quality, very, very strong space. Numerous comments also made about, I think, improving the Star lobby situation. I think everyone would agree it's pretty ugly and pretty undesirable now. We're pretty supportive of removing those stairs and pushing it back to open that up. But suggestions made about making sure that the glass is as low as possible to the floor to let a maximum amount of light into that very important corner. With respect to the public realm, a lot of comments, and I'll try and group them. First and foremost, I think the width of the north-south pedestrian spine through the block needs to be consistent. Comments were made that it goes from 10 meters to 5 meters, etc., with not much rationalization for it. It has got to be a very inviting, powerful, clear public link that is exposed to daylight, and it has to be quite special. It has to feel like people belong there and they want to use it in a very strong way. It should not be confused with cars, parking, pedestrians. This goes to the overall comment that I think we need very, very clear drawings of the public realm separate. North, south, east, west. What does it look like? What does it feel like? Is it absolutely leading with landscape, as one of our members said, which is our aspiration for the waterfront? It has to be much more legible and much more inviting than it is now. Comment made about it's easy to achieve this, move the ballroom, wrong set of priorities, analogies to the Sheridan Center on Queen Street were made. The clarity of that coordination between the lower Yonge public realm plan and this plan, I think, needs to be much, much closer. We did have that lower Yonge public realm plan at our last meeting just for issues ID, and there were a lot of comments made that it needs to evolve. It needs to be an awful lot better and incorporate many of the suggestions that were made. There's a sense, I think, and a feeling that one is not necessarily linked to this project to the degree that it could be. So there's a strong suggestion to integrate those aspects. Comment made also about the park, that there has to be a conversation at this point, up in front, at the early stages, about the park. What's going to happen? How's it going to function? How's it going to relate to this enormous population that's going to be there? There should be very powerful aspirations for that park and how this project will relate to it, as opposed to kind of feeling like that this park, well, we'll worry about that later, that the project comes first. And there's a sense of, for many of these projects in the lower Yonge precinct, kind of a silo feeling. Even though the context is shown, I think it needs to be much, much stronger. With respect to sustainability, various comments made, various questions asked that at this stage the answers weren't there. Much more detail needed on the heating sources, the ventilation, particularly given the COVID experience, how to achieve Tier 2, reflection obviously of the federal government's recent aspirations for the carbon tax, and how is this building going to meet those objectives, and should think 2050, not 2020. So there's a lot of room for further detail and further answers there. I think those cover off most of the general comments that were made. I guess one analogy was made that in terms of that north-south pedestrian link, and also the east-west, but in particular north-south, Calatrava was mentioned several times as an aspiration. It should really, really feel like, my God, it's such a special place. You want to walk through that. You want to experience that. So as a frame of reference, I'll put that out there. So I believe those are all the comments that the panel has made, and I hope it's a accurate summary of where we are at this point in time. So over to the proponent, I guess, David, have an opportunity for you to respond to what you've heard.
Sure. Thank you for the comments. I think there's a lot of good material there for us to take back and to review with our client, and just as the design team to address. I think we have a pretty clear understanding of the basis for the comments, so I think we need to now push this even further. So I appreciate the commentary. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to a vote. It is schematic design, and I'm open to suggestions and motions from different panel members, but I'm very clear on one thing, and I would like to perhaps propose a separate vote on the pedestrian bridge, of a non-support vote for that, and then we'll move to the balance of the project. Is there any comment on that?
If you want to distinguish the two aspects of the project, could we just talk briefly, or could we generalize that comment to include the north-south walkway? Maybe it's no overhead structures in pedestrian realm. How would that be? You know.
Yeah, I'm open to that. I
Yeah,
think.
I would.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, Paul. I'd extend that non-support to the public realm that encompasses all the things that are impacting it. So the first few floors, for me, all are in that zone that have to be reorganized in order to improve the public realm. So along the same lines as what Peter has suggested, but it's sort of like the base piece, including the bridge, is all in that world.
Yep. I have no problem with that. Any other comments on that? If we group the pedestrian bridge and the public realm within the first few floors all together as a vote of non-support.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. Anyone disagree? Okay, that's unanimous. Now let's consider the balance of the project. I think there's a lot of suggestions, a lot of comments were made, and I'm of two minds here. I think there's general support for the massing, but a lot of comments on the details. And I think we could give conditional support on the general massing of the project with all of our commentary to be addressed when it comes back to the project. But I'm open to other discussion.
I think that's a good approach.
Anyone else wish to comment? Okay, then let's propose a conditional support for the balance of the project in terms of the general massing of the project, with the proviso that all of our comments that are made need to be reflected and shown when the project comes back.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay, agreed. Anyone disagree? Okay, thank you very much. I think that concludes our commentary, David, and our consideration. I hope it's been helpful for you. We've obviously want to see this really shine. It's, like I said, it's a 100-year project, and it's a very special place.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, I think that concludes the public portion of our discussion.